Oh no, this is pretty creepy, is it not, everyone?
Okay. Can you see me?
Yeah, you're so
And
lifelike.
okay, and you can hear me too.
Yes, yes. It's everything I dreamed was possible.
Okay, and it looks like I got chat open. We got people here. Go ahead.
Rolling. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing Podcast Open Mic Night. We're here with our friends, Bill, Chad, Christine, Sylvia. I'm not going to get everyone. It's like an Oscar speech. Who did I forget? William Lawson, Sylvia, Shannon, John. No, I lost Chris. John Drasba. And I'm going to crucify all your names before the night is out. John Karinsich. Did I get any of that right? They're too polite to tell me I messed up their names. Well, thank you. That's very
Just
good.
have like an easy name like Greenberg,
Yeah.
Well, actually, we got Shannon.
Well, you have a seemingly simple name, but I cannot believe how many variations there are in the way people pronounce it. Mr. Savini.
Actually, it's funny. One of my entities today, the guy was pronouncing it completely wrong, and I was almost like laughing at him. And it's, put it this way, I don't like to name some of my entities out loud, but the first word is great. Okay.
Right.
But I spell it a little differently. And
Right.
he was saying gray tea. I'm like, I'm not a rapper.
Well, now you could be. You've already got the name.
So,
well, if this note thing doesn't work out, you can fall back on the rapping.
No, trust me. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you'd be the first engineer who's a rapper.
I actually go by my nickname, Christina. Many years in Latin America for Christine Fuller. I was always curious because when she fills the paperwork out, sometimes it's Christine or Christina, and that's always good to know.
Yes, you're flipping back and forth, Christine.
So,
and confusing us all.
Mm-hmm. So, Gail, I mean, we haven't talked for a few days. What do you got going on? What's new in Gail's world?
We were just talking about whether I could. So I have a vacant lot that I want to build a duplex on, and I need 1,700 square feet of lot per dwelling unit, and I have just a little less than that. I have instead of 3,400, I have 3,240, and I'm trying to figure out like which devious plan to try first. Do I do it straight up and go for a zoning variance? I already asked about this. A multifamily only needs 800 square feet per dwelling unit. So do I see if they'll let me do a triplex? Then I only need 2,400, and or I own the property next door. Will they let me carve off a chunk of the backyard and put it on the vacant lot so I have enough square footage? And you were doubting from your years of construction experience that they would let me chop off a piece of my backyard.
Yeah. In my free time, at one point in time, I was also on a planning board for a township. So
yeah, so I actually love the idea of taking a piece of the backyard because there's a woman whose backyard abuts mine. I'm really scared of her. So yes. This would create like a buffer zone where she couldn't throw like dead chickens into my backyard easily. She'd have to really lob them.
Yeah, when I was on a planning board, typically if you own two parcels next to each other, usually they would only, a lot of times they wouldn't let you take like a back slice or back wedge because,
Can I take a circle in the middle?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, usually they would want you to move the lot line and then still try and stay compliant. But you never know. So it depends. Some jurisdictions don't mind having odd-shaped lots like that to allow for.
Well, this is my real question. Who is the person you go to who kind of knows which strategy to try, because any one of them is going to cost me a bunch of money to apply.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's any, some I may have such a low chance of getting. It's not even worth.
So it's the planning commission or the planning board. There's probably somebody who runs the planning board. It would be the person who would do that. It would be them or the zoning. What I would do is I would Google or reach out to a few land surveyors and that are in the area and just talk to them, because they're the ones who work with the the jurisdiction all the time. And when I had this property in Fort Wayne, which is 5 lots, I didn't realize all 5 were buildable. Basically, even though they're worthless, but he's like, yeah, technically you can have 5 buildable lots, but he's like, they're worth like $100 a piece. I learned that from a surveyor. So
surveyors. Okay, cool. I will do. That's a great idea. Because it's, I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste money.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Speaking of wasting money, I have a property in North Carolina that doing some cash for keys on, and I had my, my North Carolina partner, who the realtor / contractor, she went by it, and when she texted me and said, "Oh, this one's worse than the last one," I was like, "How could it be worse?"
A new low.
Well, put this way, the back of the house only has plywood on it.
Oh.
So pretty interesting. The guy who was living in it was a roofer, but the roof was probably the worst part of the house.
Yeah. Why is it always that way?
You kind of know there's a problem when the whole ceiling's ready to cave in. He said, "Yeah, just don't poke a screwdriver, or you'll have running water in the house finally."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's actually sad because there are 2 little kids living with him as well, and
Is a contract for deed?
Yeah, it's contract for deed. The spouse.
The little children living in the horrible house that you would be owning?
Yes. And
yes, that really freaks me out.
Yeah, children. And he was married. He was staying home with the kids. The wife was working. The wife was working at like a gas station. Met a guy at the gas station. Ran off with him. And I mean, you hear this story, and it's horrible to hear these things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work with them. Not have them pay for a few months and give them cash for keys so we can get started again and so forth. And so we're working through that right now. But it's actually feel kind of bad. But
yeah, that is really sad.
So
I know, this is one of those you can't save everyone moments, and it's I know it in my head, but it is really sad.
So Christina asked if she's on the note as well. Yes, she is, and she's actually in prison right now. And we sent somebody to the prison to have her sign the cancellation of land contract.
Wow. Who is such a person who someone has to? Do they have to go during like regular visiting hours, or?
I think it was him.
Okay.
But a notary
doesn't have to be a notary too. No.
Good question. All I know is I got the tracking number from Madison and it's back in the mail. But on the flip side, I was burning the candle at both ends. I'd filed for forfeiture anyways, and let the borrower know ahead of time, because at the time we weren't able to find her. So we're saying that's the easiest way. I'm not, we're doing this to, speed up the process, not, not to do, don't get shocked when you get it. So.
Right. Should tell everyone why your one borrower couldn't sign his paperwork.
Which one? The dead one? Or?
No.
You got a few of those.
No, the one who wasn't available because he had other plans. Yes.
Yeah, he's going on vacation for 3 weeks.
Someone who hasn't paid in 6 months. He's going on a nice vacation.
It's 7 now, by the way. We just 7 months, but yes, he'll take care of it when he gets back after the 4th of July.
From the islands. Did you find out where they're going? I love these details.
I actually don't think. So here's a story. Been working with this borrower, and back in last fall, gave him a second chance, stay in the property, worked out a modification with the borrower, and he made one payment since then, or two payments, and then stopped paying again. And basically been trying to, first we were going to work out another mod or redo the land contract, but now in Ohio, you can't redo the land contract because of the current laws, which we're going to have Franco on next week for people. Just a little heads up, we'll have Franco on next week to talk about some of the new laws in Indiana and Ohio. So I strongly recommend you jump on, as well as Illinois for people looking to invest in Illinois, Michigan as well. So we end up looking to do a lease option. So do a 5-year lease option. And on the lease option, 100% of the payments have to go towards the, principal reduction. And, basically you have to work backwards of, okay, here's kind of the UPB and work backwards and stuff. And when you think of 5 years of payments that, are plus, insurance, taxes, maintenance, and everything else, that you kind of got to plug numbers in, it's a big number. And they didn't.
5 years is quick.
Yeah, but they didn't understand why the number was so big. And I explained it to them, and they were like, no, it should be what the land contract value is. And I'm like, the land contract would be void. Forget that it existed. It's like buying a new house, moving from one. It doesn't, that new one is, what happens with the old one doesn't matter. And they didn't get that. And then they said, okay, we're good, we'll sign it. And then saying, okay, good deadline's coming up. And they're like, oh, well, we're going on vacation for 3 weeks, so we're not going to be able to take care of it 4th of July. So, it's the point. It's a continual stall. And that was I actually don't think they're going. What forced this was I had a home inspector to go inspect the property, all scheduled and lined up. And the night before, they're like, oh, no, he can't come. We're leaving. So it's like, so I may send like somebody next week to see if they're even still there and seeing if they're just, pulling my chain.
Well, I think you should find out where they're going, and you should send a mobile notary. As long as they've got their driver's licenses with them, they can.
Well, they've only had weeks to sign this, so it's.
Yeah.
So do I go ahead and evict in that case? Unfortunately, and here's why I was trying to do the lease option, is the land contract has more than the 20%. They paid more than 20% down off the original land contract value. So it would have to be a foreclosure. So
this is Ohio.
Exactly. And Chad's on here, yeah. Chad, I will trade you Ohio for Pennsylvania any day. I would trade you all my Ohio assets for everything you have in Pennsylvania, and I guarantee you'd have no hair left on your head. So
yeah, so I live in Pennsylvania, and I hate them both. So you boys have at it.
He said deal. Oh. So Chad, I have a hearing on Monday with a borrower who bought the land contracts from 2011, performing, but all of a sudden in 2016, when the city had an adjustment to the taxes because of, they were putting new street lights in or whatever. So then a special assessment. He refuses to pay the special assessment, and he thinks the lender should pay that because he believes his costs are fixed, that the escrow payment should never change on a mortgage. And this person is a real estate agent. The hearing's on Monday. I will try and get you the paperwork tomorrow. So, Franco's office is handling it. So I'll give you that one. That's just the first one. So, but speaking of which, and talking assets and stuff, anybody have questions or challenges that are out there that want to kind of hop on or have a discussion about anything in particular? Be happy to either have someone hop on or answer your questions. In the meantime, while we wait for some people to hop on, like I said, next week we'll have Franco Burley from Entail and Burley on the show, and some real interesting things going on in Ohio and Indiana. So definitely think people should join us for that, as well as I don't know if people saw a recent case in Pennsylvania talking about needing a debt buyer's license. And, actually, Chad and I were texting about this today. Get your opinion, Gail, about, just the need now for a debt buyer's license continues to increase in every state. And unfortunately, there's not, a national debt buyer's license. But just curious, if you register or, for most states as a foreign entity and get debt buyer's licenses, and who do you use typically if you go through that process?
I'm sorry.
Quiet pause.
Someone just asked me, like I'm telling someone I'm podcasting.
No problem. No, I was talking about just registering your entity in other states and researching laws and things like that in regards to needing licenses and stuff. Do you have a go-to person or a go-to website that you use?
Okay, this is a terrible admission. I have never registered as a foreign entity in anybody's else's state. So that's probably not a good business practice.
We might want to edit out this portion of the podcast.
I have multiple entities, and I don't think any one of them has the right, the number of properties that you actually need before you're required to do it. Does that sound like an excuse?
Well, it's interesting for the foreign entity. It's one of those things that in certain states, if you need to get a certain type of license, then you need to register as a foreign entity. So I know I'm registered in Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Maryland. I'm in Virginia. I've pretty much registered in a lot of the places that are foreign entities. And the company I use is the state name and then registeredagent.com. So I started at virginiaregisteredagent.com. And then once you sign up for your home state, then when you go in there, they have register new entity or register in a new state. And you can register in any single state as a foreign entity, and they give you the address because they're registered in every state. And it's $49 a year for an entity. So it's the cheapest registered agent that I have been able to find. And it's it's very user friendly. All the state notices from the state about updating comes right to them. So they'll send you an email saying, "Oh, your invoice for renewing," because mine renews in July. "Oh, your invoice for renewing just popped up," and you can go online and just pay them the $49, and they take care of it for you. So it's nice.
Okay, so my poor husband, I just convinced him to start buying real estate, and he has bought some properties in Indiana, and there's something new, like Central Indiana, the electric company is Duke Energy, and I have a Duke Energy account from 2017, but now they won't open an account for an out-of-state entity unless you are registered as a foreign entity in Indiana. As part of their sign-up process, they check to see if you are registered. So he has had to register, and I don't know what you're talking about, because here's the bill. It's $107.36, and that doesn't even count what he had. He had to buy a subsistence certificate in PA to prove to these people that he's an existing Pennsylvania LLC. So it's gotten pretty pricey here.
So in Virginia, what you can do is on their portal, I can go in and print an article of good standing, which is $5, which is a form saying you're still licensed in the state as an LLC. When I register as a foreign entity, typically I just send that off to them. And
well, you're lucky because that's cheap. It's Virginia, but
Virginia, I mean,
most of us don't live in Virginia. In fact, nobody lives in Virginia. Am I right?
$100 to open a new LLC, $50 a year to renew it. When I hear people $800 in California, I just kind of chuckle. I'm yeah, you could register 8 companies here.
That's sad.
Sylvia mentioned paying taxes in those states. No, I don't pay taxes because my home office is not in those states. So I don't pay any state taxes on any properties in those states that I'm aware of.
Well, just the fact that this utility company has started to do that, I feel like everything is moving in this direction. It's just getting harder and harder to just wing it.
Yeah.
So my days of just bopping in and out could be coming to an end.
Yeah. Well, and that's, with some of these, if you've got assets that you are going to legal action on, I would strongly recommend that you make sure you're registered in that state. I think it's Cuyahoga County, my favorite county.
Oh yeah,
There, if you're not registered within the state, I think they chart, like, there's a huge fine in Cuyahoga County to not register with it. And for people who
that's
want,
Ohio. People who aren't
yeah.
aware, Cleveland. Woohoo.
Yeah. In person who puts out some good information on stuff like that is an attorney by the name of John Hyre, Hyre. I think he's the third, but I believe he might have moved to Puerto Rico, but he was an attorney, I think, up in Ohio, and I think he's like a CPA or a tax attorney, but he's very familiar with a lot of those. He follows a lot of those laws, and
Right.
I
He
know.
is very. He's kind of overkill, though, wouldn't you say? And so, like, he
Uh,
just
well,
belt suspenders.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain things that I know he talks about in regards to taxes and modifications. And first of all, I'm not an accountant or CPA or anything, but I think there's certain things that if you treat all your income as ordinary income, you kind of that some of this other stuff from what I've been told is not necessary. In that sense, because you're treating it on a Schedule C, not a Schedule D. And yes, Bill, he's super, yeah. Oh, never question his intelligence. He's super smart. He's
He did
said
well. He
he.
went to Puerto Rico, though. Like, how smart is that? No.
No,
Yeah, it's
actually, I
cheap.
spent 4 months in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, actually, I loved it down there.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
Like anything. Let's see. And then Christina mentioned, do you need to have a DBA in those states too? I don't do, a DBA in those states. I just register as a foreign entity under my name. If there's another name that matches, honestly, I'm not sure how you would treat that, but I don't know anybody else that has name 7E. So,
Yeah.
um,
So
but,
here's where having a checkbook IRA is tricky, though, because I have multiple entities. Am I really going to register them all in all these states and everything? I mean, this is what has discouraged me so far.
well,
Yes.
here's where I think business is going. And this is kind of, I think, where this episode of podcast is going is, in regards to licensing. And I think you're going to start to see a lot of debt buyers in the mortgage world start to need debt collection or lender licenses. I know in some states, there's minimums of 3 or 5. We talk about Illinois, you talk about Georgia, you talk about some of these other states. I truly think you're going to start to see a shift of it moving in that direction, because everything is moving, I think, pro-consumer friendly in a lot of states, maybe not in the District of Columbia right now, but in a lot of these states, I think they are. And I think that's where you're going to start to see that shift is, to start buying assets and notes and stuff, you're going to start to need a lender license or some type of license, unfortunately.
Well, that will certainly separate the people who are serious from the ones who are not.
Yeah.
And I guess I look like someone who's not that serious at this point because I haven't done all these things. But
I still think they'd probably put a limit to it. But the question is it a limit in the state or is it a limit nationwide? I know, like, being a mortgage loan originator, there's a nationwide limit as well as a state limit, and things like that. So you got to be careful, make sure in some of these instances, like I was looking to take some CFDs in Michigan and convert them to notes. And, I had Franco convert one of them, and he's like, you realize we got to do like the whole MLO process for this. I'm like, well, if I was doing a new land contract, I would have had to do it anyways. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right.
yeah.
Because, I'm converting a bunch of CFDs to notes. And again, you need to, I think, start to crack down or some of these jurisdictions. And again, you might not get, caught on it, but if the borrower turns around and claims you did something wrong and you didn't use a loan originator to originate that loan, you're in violation of CFPB, and could cause trouble if you try and take the property back.
Yeah. Well, I haven't bought many newly originated notes, but if I was buying, performing notes or even non-performing, I would want to know if they had followed all the rules in creating it, because I don't know, buying it as a second party, I would certainly assume that they would still hold you responsible, for what was done when it was originated.
That's why I think some people start to shift over to commercial side, because on the commercial side or non-owner occupied side, you don't have to worry about this fair debt collection, all that stuff, because it's not considered a consumer loan. It's a investment / commercial loan. And I was talking today with my favorite attorney about demand letters, actually, and a question came up. I said, I'm really tired of paying, $100 every time I need to send a demand letter, and he's like, then don't pay it. And I'm like, well, okay. He's like, you realize you can send your own demand letter. He's like, you can file loss, eviction. He's like, sometimes it has more teeth when it has an attorney's name on it. But he goes, if you send a demand letter, basically that clock started. And then after that time, send it, he goes, every bank, sends their own demand letters. Every, fund that he works with typically sends their own demand letters. A servicer sometimes sends the demand letter for you. They're not an attorney. So a little, food for thought there for people, don't want to take any business away from attorneys, but when you've got a good amount of notes and you got to start sending demand letters, you all of a sudden, look at sending, 30 of them a year or something. That's $3,000 that you can keep in your partner's pockets.
Totally. So Sylvia wants to know what kind of license you're getting.
So what type of license am I getting? I do. I'm starting to get some debt collection licenses in some certain states, states that are leaning more towards those being required in those states. So, and certain states I'm looking at also getting lender license as well. But, I don't invest in Georgia right now or Illinois, so not looking at those. And with it being halfway through the year, it's almost foolish in a sense, because typically you pay full price for the calendar year. So to get one now in June, you're kind of wasting half the year. Some states actually will credit you back, but not all of them do. And Christine said, what states am I doing that in? Indiana, Pennsylvania are two that I'm getting the debt collection licenses in, because I'm hearing some rumblings about Indiana right now, and Pennsylvania just had a lawsuit basically noting that you need to have a debt collection license if you have distressed debt, which is odd because when you go on like the NMLS, which is kind of like the storage for all these licensing things, there is nothing about it. And even if you talk to some of these companies that help you with debt collection licenses, none of them say you need something in Pennsylvania. And I'm curious if it's going to shift after this lawsuit that came out, decision that came out last month.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I know Chad is tangling a bit with the Attorney General in Pennsylvania about his contracts for deed.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it like your cousin's Attorney General or something?
Yeah. My best friend lives kitty corner to him. I could throw a rock through his window, and maybe I will if he keeps this up. He's always got like thuggish looking guards standing around. That's what's kept me so far from just, walking over, knocking on the door. Mm-hmm. But other people have said, that they have found Chad must not be his usual charming self with them, because other people have said when their attorneys call and just explain very nicely that we're trying to keep people in their houses and we're being nice to them and we didn't set the interest rate. The seller we bought it from did, and we're open to tweaking it a little bit, then they chill right out and they're like, yeah, okay.
I find it hard to believe Chad was not his charming self.
I know, but Chad's been having issues like with the with the code enforcement guy in Missouri, and now this. He strikes me as
I actually
devilishly charming, Chad.
I actually envision Chad like myself. I can sit here and smile and be all nice and happy. You get me on a certain day, and all of a sudden, and being in the construction industry and so forth, I mean, it is a cutthroat business, and people just try and bully and be intimidating. So sometimes you just, literally let go and go off on people, and you kind of have to have that side of you. At least I know in the States you do. I don't know up in the north how it is.
So that's very true. Like, Chris is just endlessly kind and accommodating and reasonable, but when the switch is flipped, as I said the other day, release the Kraken.
Sylvia, what does getting a license entail? A lot of booze. That's the first thing I would say. Stock up on booze first before you try and get a license, because you are going to definitely need that after dealing with some of these.
I'm sorry, you said booze? You're talking about
booze, like what you drink.
Alcoholic beverages?
Alcoholic beverage. Yeah, I got an MLO license in Virginia just to have one in case I wanted to do, at one point if I was going to look to originate loans. So I just have it, and it's kind of sitting there. It only took 9 months to get. And because in one form I filled out one thing wrong in the system, I had to go restart it and do it all over. And as part of doing it all over, I had to pay the $50 again. And I'm like, can't you just change it in the system? And they're like, nope. And what was wrong was I have the entity I used is owned by another entity. Because it's a holding company owns the entity, not me personally. And I put the owner as the entity, and they're like, no, it can't be an entity that is the owner. And I'm like, well, it is, but they're like, well, you have to put who the officer is then. I'm like, okay, but it said the entity. So to go in, I had to redo it and put myself in as the officer, which took, them 3 months to tell me that, and $50 later. But
so, I had something similar when I was trying to register a new Pennsylvania LLC, and they asked the question on the docketing statement, who is responsible for reporting taxes? And it was an IRA, so I put down the IRA custodian, and same thing, it can't be an entity. It's got to be you, basically.
Yeah, and other states to get licensed in, I would, when you're talking to your attorney, like if you've got an attorney that's licensed in a few states, just ask them, like, okay, I'm going to register as a foreign agent for an entity. Do I need any type of special, do your other clients have a lender license or debt collector license? If you Google nationwide, just Google NMLS, National Mortgage, I forget what it's called, but NMLS, Nancy, Mary, Louise, Sylvia. Google that, and that's kind of like a state-by-state licensing.
But you already said there was nothing about Pennsylvania.
Not Pennsylvania there, no. But other states will tell you, like, he'll give you information about Georgia, how to do it in Georgia, Illinois, what you need to do in Illinois, and just give yourself time if you're going to do those states. So, let's see. Any other questions?
I don't know about everyone else. I'm going to wait until I am pinned to the wall to do any of this. There is no there's no prophylactic licensing now. This Armageddon may never materialize. That is my view. And if it does, I'm just going to say I'm just a woman from Pennsylvania I did not know.
A lawsuit in Pennsylvania. So here's the story with this one, which is interesting. It was about a car debt. Company bought it, tried to repossess or sued the guy. The guy countersued him, and it sounds like he won. And the guy countersued and won that, not only can you not take the car, that the debt is no good, I'm suing you for all this money because you were negligent and weren't supposed to collect the debt, and you came after me on a debt that you couldn't collect.
Wow. Why couldn't they collect the debt? Did you know any details about that?
What's
Like
that?
what? Why was the debt considered illegitimate?
Because they didn't have a debt collection license.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
See,
not only,
Christina's with me on this. She's like,
so, and it's interesting.
you come after me, buddy.
Like, oh, not only can you not collect the debt, but we're going to go after you for it as well. So
Yeah, that's really aggressive.
So that was on a car loan, and I don't know if that's treated differently or whatnot. But the interesting thing is, again, you've got certain areas saying what is a debt collector, what is not a debt collector, and stuff. And I know there was a Supreme Court decision that made some comment about debt collectors, but let me tell everyone on here: if you're buying notes that are distressed, you are a debt collector. That was just very specific to one small section of.
Yeah, that basically, didn't it say that if you were collecting your own debt, you weren't a debt collector, that third parties are debt collectors?
Only for that one specific section. But then if you go back and look at another section, you are a debt collector, but in most states, if it is your own debt, you don't need to get the license. So, and that's what also you need to look into. But again, states are starting to change. And even though it may say you don't need it, now the courts are leaving it it's being left up to the courts to decide in these instances, which all of a sudden it's like you're rolling the dice.
Yeah, so I guess this comes back to kind of a life philosophy kind of thing. Like, everything is arguable, right? Anybody can sue anybody at any time for anything, right? And it's kind of a roll of the dice there's one set of rules, but judges get to interpret them. And, everything is up for interpretation. So I am completing a 2-year process. In theory, on Monday is the sheriff's sale for the only asset I've ever owned in Pennsylvania, in my own state. And it's a note, not a contract for deed. This asset, it's somebody's rental. It's not their house. And it's got so many things on it. It's taken so long that not only were all the original liens on it, but now all these omnibus judgment liens from other properties that this guy owns are on it. Plus there's a $7,500 Pennsylvania income tax lien on it. So I'm discussing it with my attorney, the bid. And I say to him, well, the income tax lien that comes after my lien, and that's only if there's surplus, will that get paid? And he's like, oh, no. That, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania lien comes before anything else. And the fun and interesting part was that I had written to that same Attorney General's office that doesn't like Chad. And I asked them what the position of this lien was and what would happen when this house sold if my complete debt was not covered, which, trust me, there is no freaking way. If half my debt were covered, I would be delighted. If anyone makes any bid, I'd be super excited. But here, my own attorney, who in theory does this all the time, doesn't know this crap. And we're this close to being done, so I didn't confront him. But I really wanted to just say to him, after forwarding the email from the district attorney's office telling me, no, you don't have to worry about the income tax lien. I just want to say to the attorney, it's a huge disappointment to me that you don't know this stuff, and that therefore you have not been a counselor to me at all on this. There's been no strategy. There hasn't even been any accurate, information coming from you. So I don't know. How do I deal with my feelings about this? Christopher, now you're texting someone?
Someone talking to me, so that's
like a regular husband. I'm ranting and you're like, That steam that's on.
Stop ranting.
I have to do something with this lawyer. I need to express myself.
Well, seeing people, sharing some challenges with Pennsylvania today. Just for everybody, if you're looking to buy anything from Home Opportunity in Pennsylvania, pretty much don't,
So,
because 3 counties that I just had assets that I bid on all have significant liens on them that the seller will not pay. So, in their state liens against the entity. So, essentially, yeah, so I was talking with John today. And I'm like, I had 9 assets and only 2 of them now are actually like going to go to close. And he's like, well, it's only 2. And I'm like, well, John, I kind of want to close on these 2 because, unfortunately I just wasted, $2,000 in due diligence because you have your seller has all these assets that they're marketing out there and they have liens on them that are worth more than the property. And honestly, it kind of sucks.
I see a big additions to the toxic assets list, though.
Yes.
On the plus side.
Yes. So there'll be some big additions to that list for everyone that's out there.
We'll just add PA to the no fly zone. Okay, yeah. Ohio, PA, like a whole little chunk of the Mid-Atlantic just for.
So yeah, it's been so it was Beaver County, Butler County, and I think Allegheny too had. No, Allegheny didn't.
Allegheny is where Pittsburgh is.
There's one just to the southwest of it as well. That I can't think of what it is, but yeah. So let's see. We have. My thing just started popping up. I thought we had another question.
Yeah.
So are liens against Home Opportunity that you will acquire?
So John is being very supportive to me. Thank you, John. Yes, I should be able to expect my attorney to know his job, right? Yes. Thank you.
So here's a question that I'll throw out there, and I'm not going to get specific by any way, shape, or form, but who is more challenging to manage, your attorney or your servicer? I want everyone out there to put in the comment box who they think is more challenging, your attorney or the servicer. And while you put that in, Sylvia asked about liens against Home Opportunity that you acquire. Yes, those were their state tax liens that are tied to the property. So when they quit claim deed it, it's still tied to that property. So, unfortunately. Let's see, servicer, but it's close. Servicers. So, yeah, the servicers, but here's one for you. I have another note that has a mediation hearing next week as well. And I got a call from I've been trying to chase down this attorney. I'm not going to name the state or who it is. I've been trying to chase down this attorney for a week.
We have a list for that too.
Yeah. I've been trying to chase down this attorney for about a week and like, hey, it's coming up and stuff. Sends me an email today. Yeah, the court will call you on Wednesday for the hearing. And, I'm not going to be able to make it. The attorney's not going to make it. So we're going to have a fill-in attorney go. And you'll be on the phone, though. They'll call you to discuss the mediation. I'm like, okay, but this is like a borrower who just doesn't agree to anything. And I'm not really comfortable having, myself, an attorney who knows nothing about this case involved. So I came up with Plan B. Unfortunately, I can't disclose it at this point in time what Plan B is. But, let's just say maybe I may have a friend sitting next to me potentially who kind of may know a thing or two about stuff. So let's leave it at that. But okay, servicers, because so back to our quiz that we had, or our poll question. Looks like everyone is mentioning servicers. So while we're on that, let's kind of dive a little more into that. What's your biggest complaint with the servicers? Is it the workout, the reach out, the accounting side of things, the transfer process. Curious to hear what people's opinions are. Is it their portal that you can't get information off of? Curious to hear what people's comments are. For me,
Right. So I'm trying to try out Allied on 2 loans that I'm keeping out of a bunch that I just bought. And I just like Allied has not heard from the current servicer, and we're all confused. So I find out today that instead of sending those 2 to Allied and all the others to Madison as I requested, they sent all of them to Madison, and the hello letters have already gone out. And it turned out it was because the seller, although they had like an actual spreadsheet saying which servicer I wanted each one to go to, because I was sure that they were going to mess it up, and all they had to do was, send that to the current servicer. They didn't do that. So they just completely screwed it up. And the current servicer's comment to me is, well, would you consider keeping them at Madison's since this got all messed up? And I don't know if this was the right answer, but I said, no, I want you to fix it. I want you to write to those borrowers and say, we messed up. We sent you a letter a couple days ago that said this is your new servicer, but in fact, it's these other people, Allied Servicing in Washington.
So Sylvia mentioned about just a workout and being slow, and here's the challenge with that. And I think servicers could do a better job communicating this. When they're doing a workout, they'll make a phone call, and if they get voicemail, they'll maybe make a call the next day. But then they put in their system, you'll see follow-up date change. If you use Madison as an example, that's basically them just putting a task in their system for the following week of when back to reach out. And typically, I think they're only allowed to reach out 3 times per week anyways. But yeah, they're not reaching out every single day. Maybe once or twice a week is what they do. So it is going to be slower.
Yeah, they should set the expectation. They should tell you up front, we're going to call. This is how it's going to go. And then you could be like, okay.
But here's one for you, Gail, because certain things, I'm starting to look at some of these performing loans I have that are lower balance and moving them over to Allied because with the costs and the escrow in Madison, it's pricey. So I started looking at, okay, if I moved, X amount of loans over to Allied, well, I guess how much I could save a month?
Hundreds of dollars.
Over $1,000.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm like, okay.
You want me to be the guinea pig and I will have my Allied experience and then I will let you know.
I don't know if anyone on here uses Allied. I sent Mary Lou an email. I'm like, can you show me what your portal looks like? And she's like, no, you need to have an account with us. And I'm like, well, you don't have a demo account or something? I'm just curious, what their online portal looks like, just so I can kind of go in and see what's going on. And Bill says he's used them in the past,
yes.
But he's okay. So I've used them in the past. I like them. So I'm curious why.
Did you stop using them, Bill, after using them? I just found out somebody I know uses the Note Service Center too, which I've never met anyone. What, pricey?
Yep.
Huh. Well, what is the point of that?
So yeah, Note Servicing Center, Land Home is another one. They're all about the same. I mean, you're going to pay $40 a month.
Okay, so what about Evergreen? I know we're not really prepared to go into the...
I thought they used to be really cheap. And same thing, I just got their pricing, and I had their pricing from 2017 to now. It doubled. They're at $40 a month. Same thing. What it is they're all around the same. They're all around $20, $25 for the loan, but it's the escrows where they crush you. And I actually had a tutorial with the software that a lot of servicers use. And as mentioned, I see Gail mentioned to everyone here, how the loan management software works and stuff. It is like so intuitive. It does everything for you. Like the escrow that they charge you and stuff like that for, and the escrow letters and everything. It's literally you put in the tax
Yeah.
amount, the insurance amount, and it spits out the compliant letter for you.
Automated.
And it's automated, and basically you hit the button, and if they're managing 1,000 loans, they can do every one. Hit the print button, it prints them all out, and then they send it to a company to mail out. So it's not like somebody there with a calculator figuring it out.
We are this close to self-servicing, would you say, Chris, or maybe even
Not that close because it goes back to the compliance and everything. I mean, I've got a few loans that I have that are more hard money type where I sold them to an investor who's like a fix and flipper to have them. Because those don't also have to be compliant. If I pull the trigger on the software, then yeah, I could actually service those. And the reason I'm actually looking at this software too is multiple reasons, but one is it's very good for reporting to investors and printing reports, as well as ACH payments can go directly to them as well, and also can tell them what their yield has been for the year and stuff. It's pretty cool. Pricey, but when I'm getting to the point now where just trying to use a bunch of systems into managing everything where I could use
right. It's good for lease options too. Another one where you don't have to.
Exactly. Oh, Christina, I can tell you all about that.
I talk Chris down out of a tree weekly when he discusses starting a servicing company.
So certain states you don't need a license. Other states you do. And I'm like, okay, Indiana, it's like $300 to get a license to service loans. And
I wanted to warn you too that Allied does not do North Carolina for some reason.
No, I bet they don't do Wisconsin either.
They do. There is only 3: New York, I think New Jersey, and North Carolina.
Okay. Christina, yes. So I looked at that extensively, and actually, yeah, Gail, and I keep going back. But what I've looked at is too, it comes down to, I was talking to an investor, and he has kind of an interesting model where he's like, you know what? I used to service my own, and then I turned them back over to Allied for $18 a month or whatever it is. But he goes, I do all the workouts. So he's like, all they do is collect payments. That's the only thing. They collect payments. I can go in the system, see if it's not performing. I send out the demand letter. And actually, it was interesting. His philosophy, and I mentioned this on a prior episode too, was, look, I'm not chasing the borrower. It gets boarded. Basically they get the hello letter, 30 days, 45 days comes on. I send the demand letter. If they want to call me about the demand letter, work something out, great, we will. I may make a phone call or two. And then after the demand letter expires, send the notice of default and just take it from there. And he's like, you spend too much time chasing these people when you could be, again, looking at other opportunities or whatever it may be. And so it's very reach out. He's waits for them to come to him.
Right. And I have been very proud about getting people back in the saddle only to have them just fall out again. It's like, it feels like people need to want it. They need to be the one who calls you. Yeah. That's a good indication that they want it. If you're chasing them, it's like children. You can't make them want it.
Yeah, and to answer Christina's question, I would do it all day long if there wasn't the legal compliance issues of, if you're doing your own loans, it's one thing. If you're doing someone else's, forget it, because then you have to have a compliance officer and you have so many licensing, and it's too expensive because the bond and everything. Whereas if you're just servicing your own loans, that typically, some states you still would need the license, but it's not as challenging if you're just doing a lot of your own. But the moment you started doing everyone else's, because, I was looking at the software and almost like, oh, I could service mine. And then joking, I'm like, okay, Gail, you could, access a system and service your own within the system and just have a
user. Yeah.
Different user and have people, do that. But it's, Gail keeps, take me off the cliff. So I still may go back up that to the top, but
Yes, we've been talking about this for so long.
this has been one of our discussions. So yeah, Christina, sounds like I'm still considering it. Nothing ever gets taken completely off the table.
Yes.
I'm going to wake up at 2:00 in the morning and send Gail a note saying, Gail, what if we could do this?
I'm only grateful that you also have Brian Gallagher so that I don't get every single message and phone call.
He shoots me down more than, I said girls did in
I don't
high
have the
school.
credentials. I just tell you when it sounds crazy or just, not a great use of time. But Chris is obsessed, which is, part of his genius, really. He can't let go.
Well, we're on top of the surgeries. I just want everyone out there to know who uses Madison, just in case you don't know, they moved. So just FYI, they're in
Reno, baby,
right?
Nevada
now. So
but the staff, and Shantae's still.
They have some staffs. Yeah, some staff still in Jersey. I know Shantae is, Damien, who's my person, is, Saber or Saba is, but Kevin moved, and I think they're starting to bring people. Gail's tired. Bring people over to Reno as well. So
yes, Reno.
So if you do,
biggest little city.
Yeah, if you don't have ACH with them, make sure you change the address in your bill pay system.
Yeah. I already had a borrower contact me because something came back, which I don't even know why it would. Why wouldn't it just get forwarded? But he was like, do you have their phone number? And I just, I've definitely changed. I'm kind of like, you're a grown man, you have a house. I'm not looking up the phone number for you. I'm sorry. This is the new angry me. I've had it with everyone. You're all on my last nerve. Not you people, but the other people.
Any other questions? It's kind of like a potpourri podcast almost.
Yeah. Did we even have a topic? We kind of, before we started, we had a topic, but just never happened.
So, John said, why did that happen with the assets in PA you bid on? More owed on them than disclosed?
Yeah, they don't tell you up front about the liens. You find out.
Yeah, I mean, taxes and stuff I can look up and stuff, but, it's called the I forget the name of it. It's
Prothonotary.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Office that, has a lot of that information, and, you go run a title report, an O&E report, and all of a sudden those start popping up on them. And, they're from the state. So it's like a state, state tax lien. And, there was over with interest, they were probably about $18,000. And, the two assets that I bid on were, say average about 10,000 a piece. So it's, at that point in time, it's like, if they want to give them to me, fine. And he's like, well, they're not going to give them to you. And I'm like, well, then they're just going to continue to accrue taxes and never be able to buy anything in there again. So,
speaking of deals, so I'm not going to talk about how I know things that we know, but I just discovered, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about NPER, which is the formula for calculating how many payments are left on a loan based on the PI, the UPB, and the interest rate, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody go back and review that the next time you get a big tape from John. Because I just saw, it's unbelievable. So I am aware that someone paid, they bought a loan that has a $2,400 UPB, which is, you have to really be careful these little balance ones because they always have mistakes in the thing. The monthly payment is $150. And according to the tape, there were 131 payments left. 130, come on. You don't have to be a math genius like Chad and Chris to realize that's that's not true. It's N per. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris. And this gentleman paid $3,200. So he already paid more than the UPB. The tape said there were 131 payments left. If you do the calculation, there are 18 payments left. The gross payment of 150 times 18 is like $2,700. Like, he's already lost money. He hasn't even paid for the servicing, the boarding, God knows, probably the insurance.
Transfer.
He's already lost $500.
And he's not going to get the property because you mentioned the borrower's been making payments.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Maybe he thinks he's going to get the property. Well, the borrower made a payment in April. So no, that's not going to happen. And it's South Carolina, where a CFD has to be foreclosed on for like the full price, like $3,600 or whatever. So come on, this is a well-known figure in note investing. So I just want to say, like, no one's immune. Pay attention. Watch that podcast. That was a good one. We did like show and tell. It was good. Okay.
Speaking of assets, Gail, we'll be releasing a tape whenever I can hit the send button on it.
Too busy figuring out how to have a servicing company to hit the button on the tape. So what number podcast was that, Chris? The podcasts have pretty good, they're titled pretty well. I think you could probably, it was recently, like in the last few weeks.
Just so people are aware too, our podcasts typically have about a 2-week delay. So we record, like tonight's probably isn't going to get released till around the 4th of July. And it's because it takes, just so people, if anyone's out there interested in also starting podcasts, it takes the company about a week to create the, transfer it to a blog post, create the graphics, edit everything out. So that takes, a good week to do that. So, and then, we record, and so forth. So that's where it would be. I think that one is,
If you know this number, that's ridiculous. Are you looking it up? You're not remembering it, right?
I'm trying to look it up and I can't see it, but I'm just laughing because one of them's titled "Marketing Putting Up Houses for Sale on Facebook." That's coming out next week, but that one's
for $500. You mean?
Yes.
I put one up for $500. There was frenzied bidding, and I got $750 for it.
Yeah. By the way, is Bill still on? Is Bill still on? Yes, he is. Yes. Bill, right now your podcast is the actually within votes of the highest rated podcast we've had out of 50 plus
so
episodes.
Bill, starting next week, you are the third co-host, and we'll see you then.
No. But are you still sending it with formulas? Happy yeah, we'll check. And also, I'll put this weekend, I'll start putting some of these episodes on Thursday nights up as well. One of the things that I've kind of slowed down doing is I used to post them like the next day, but some of the topics we talk about or stuff that we put out to investors or talk about kind of people who have joined us, I'd rather give them a little head start on things or, get information before other people. So I'm waiting till they get posted on iTunes and, the podcast episode, and then I can take the graphics from it as well and use that to post on.
Yeah, we should put up, remember how we took the big 600 asset tape that had the number of payments left on it.
Yep.
We created a column and put in the formula to show how many payments were actually left. And there were a number of shocking,
yes,
really shocking. So we should put that tape up. Are we allowed to do that or not? Because
I'm going to put that episode's going on YouTube tomorrow. So So people who are watching this tomorrow, you can go on YouTube, and there'll probably be like 3 or 4 episodes getting all uploaded on the YouTube channel. So
yeah. Now I'm just wondering if we gave the formula though. Could we put it in the comments? Something.
I think we put it in the comments, but it's pretty simple formula.
Says Chris 70.
Yes, it is.
Shot.
Let me tell you what
numbers are their lives.
Let me
I
tell
know people
you.
who can't do anything in a spreadsheet, Chris. So
it is the. So the first thing is you put equal NPER, Nancy, Paul, Elaine, Richard. Then
are you typing it? Why don't you just type it down here? Equals NPER.
Parentheses. Then the interest rate that the loan is divided by 12.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're doing is you're selecting the column. You know what I have? Oh, I've got this. Let me just grab it and put it up there because I have it. This will be good if I can get my computer. So let me see.
I'm putting it in.
And not like I'm going to put it in.
John, yes, the iTunes and the YouTube are about a 2-week delay. Yeah, that's what I was getting. I used to put the YouTube up faster, but some of the stuff that we put out there, I want to give people who watch this. I mean, if you on the episode like tonight and said, hey, look, can you send me a link to it? Because I put it on YouTube just as a hidden link. I'll send it to you because you were on, but certain things, recently we've been talking about like an asset or something that we might want, we might be selling or just certain things. And, I want to give the people who were on the episode kind of a little bit of head start on things sometimes and just, because, you're a loyal listener and joining us this evening, whereas somebody who doesn't join us just wants to watch it on Friday evening or something. I prefer, if someone says, oh, I'm just going to watch the NBA draft tonight, thinking I can pick it up tomorrow. It's like, no, I'm going to make you wait 2 weeks. So.
Like I said, vengeful.
Oh my God, Gail, come on. So mine is much easier to follow.
We shall see. We have everyone can pick.
No, okay, everyone out there, come on. Whose is easier, Gail's who put in the actual cells or mine? You take the interest rate divided by 12, the monthly payment is a negative number in the UPB. Come on.
Well, okay, so this was referring to, I just want to make sure people actually understand that the capital letters are your columns. So the column that the interest rate is in, use that letter, not N. Okay, whatever that column is. And L, it's not L, it's whatever the column letter is that your PI payment is in. So is that clear?
So, okay, so Sylvia is now asking about the interest rate, which is, I'll put this one in. It's present. So this is performing only. So I'm just starting that, performing only. It's the interest rate you desire. And then
you've pressed the start button on the math machine now.
Number of periods, which is the formula we just showed you.
Get ready. Here it goes.
Payment and the future value, which is 0. So that is the formula. Now the payment. So here's the payment should be a negative, I believe. I have to check that, but can play with that. But now here's the thing with the payment is, do you take into account, the servicing costs? So, and again, the rate should be divided by 12. Give me 1 second. Present value. Yeah, the payment should be a negative number, just FYI. In that, Sylvia. So you put present value, which is the value that if you want to get a 10% interest rate over the next 100 months at a $300 a month payment, and then the loan's paid off, what is that value you should pay? And that's kind of how that formula works. But only, I can't stress enough, for a performing note would you use that for that formula. So any other questions, comments? Kind of went really all over the place. Hodgepodge.
Yeah. That's what happens when people with ADD do podcasts. Sorry.
Sylvia, you just opened up like the biggest bucket of worms. Not a can, a bucket once you start throwing out formulas. So
really, it's like putting money in a gumball machine and just a flood of gumballs comes out.
And Chad's on here, but when, Chad and I one time were just talking about calculators, and, I was joking like, oh, I'll show you mine, to send, because we get so excited, like someone wants to look at it and stuff. And so,
oh, man. So the real magic in a calculator would be how to figure out, the magic where you would know the lowest number that the seller would accept. Like, it's not the lowest number you want to pay, but the lowest number they would accept. So,
unfortunately, that's not something you can have.
It's like a hotline stuff, not calculators, for goodness sake.
Sylvia, is there a way to cross-check it? Can you use a financial calculator online, TI 58 or whatever they're called?
So the one I use is Easy Calculators, E and a Z Calculators app. And then you go in there and it's the TVM calculator.
Yeah. TVM, time value of money. There you go, T-value. Yep, that's what you want to do. It's funny you mentioned something like that, and I'm going to digress right now, but I had a doctor's appointment today. And this appointment's been scheduled for like 3 weeks, and I get there and stuff, and the individual I was meeting with wasn't too familiar with what we were meeting on.
Didn't have a chance to glance at your...
Oh, no, it gets better. Your
file. Mm-hmm.
Well, I like to go to mayoclinic.org and see what they have to say. And I'm like, you're going to have me sit here for an hour while you sit here and read mayoclinic.org? I'm like, it's funny because I've already read it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell you what they're going to say. And I'm like, am I the specialist or are you the specialist?
This is like me telling the attorney about the tax thing. Like, no, I don't have to pay it.
And what was even better is like,
who's the professional here?
I finally get some recommendations, and it's like, but you really should run this by your primary care. And I'm like, so you were just full of useless information.
It was time well spent.
Yes. So.
Well, did you at least bond over something else other than your health?
No, I mean, at least when I spent like the hour plus at TD Bank, I mean, I was talking with, the teller, the woman, doing all my accounts and stuff for me and stuff. And we were just sharing stories and stuff like that. At least it made the time go by and stuff like that. It's like such a slow, painful process when opening an account in a bank. It's kind of like going to like buying a car almost nowadays. It's like, can I just, send you the information and have me come in and sign the paperwork? But at least that hour and a half wasn't as painful as that appointment that I had today. So.
Yes, I use TD, Christine. It is a good bank, and they are easy for wires. Yep. I wire from home most of the time, but you have to get them to give you a high enough limit that you can do it, which is some extra paperwork. Sorry, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say interesting. So I've done credit since with Merrill Chandler and stuff. And, I'm at the final throes of, okay, now open some accounts. And I've been using Wells Fargo, who has been great for me because they have great wire limits and everything else, and give me a little key card thing so I can do wires from home. The challenge they've had is their ACHs are like $3 per ACH to each entity. If it's a business account, and it would be nice to be able to pay JV partners and some of these things ACH versus the whole bill pay thing. So I've opened TD Bank is one that I've opened, and I'm going to mix them all together anyways. So I've done TD Bank, PNC, and Wells Fargo, and another local community bank. PNC actually has something pretty cool where, so I've got multiple entities, and and it's like $45 a month, and you can have up to 4 entities use it, but it includes, instead of wiring, they can do same day ACH for it's $1.50, I think. So, and then any other ACH is 15 cents. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I send 2-3 wires a month, so there's easily 60 to $90. I could do same day ACH, and then also ACH all my JVs and everything like that, and pay.
What's the dollar limit, though?
The dollar limit, I think it's 50,000, but you can get it increased after 90 days. And then
That's PNC, you said?
Yeah, it's called their Pinnacle is what it was called. So, did they give you a third degree to open a business account? So I thought you need all kinds.
It almost like anti-terrorism stuff now, or anti-money laundering.
Well, to open a business account, typically you need to have your EIN, you need to have your articles of organization, you need to have your operating agreement, and TD actually. So TD was the only one that required. They wanted 4 forms of identification. So I'm like sitting here, I'm like, okay, and they're like, no. I'm like, okay, here's a credit card. And they're like, no, we need the statement. So actually, I saved my credit card and bank statements, thankfully, electronically. So I'm like, okay. So I go on my computer. I'm like, okay, here's my Capital One credit card with a bill statement. Here's my car payment with a bill statement. Here's my mortgage, And so I had to pull them all up in email. And I'm like, this is insane. I'm like, I literally live like a mile from the bank. I joked to her. I'm like, how about we just drive to my house? I'm like, I'll buy you a cup of coffee at my house even, and so forth. But so those are the ones. SunTrust I tried, but they were just so painful on the phone. I'm like, I'm not even gonna bother dealing with them. So
yeah, so it must be you, Chris, because my husband just opened a business account at TD, and it was not like that at all.
So the one thing I'll mention though is they're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, real estate. And so they're always like, oh, what do you do? I explain to them note investing, and they get so excited, and I know they're like, oh, you should talk about doing investing and stuff. I'm telling this guy like, oh yeah, I'll buy a note at 50 cents on the dollar. That's distressed. I get them repaying, and then they start paying, and maybe I pay $20,000 for his $40,000 note, and then it starts repaying and stuff, and then I can sell a partial for $20,000, get my $20,000 back, and sell the first 100 payments. So basically, I just got 100 payments on the back end for free and stuff like that. And the guy's like, and he's like, again, you can't find anything for parking spaces, $250,000. So I showed him like one of the houses I bought for under $1,000. Yeah, I bought this house for under $1,000, and they're looking like, WTF,
Yeah, I just say to them, so you guys make the loans, and you're very careful about who you give them to, but all your mistakes, we buy those.
Yes. And we profit significantly. Hopefully, not all. But
$750 house in Birmingham. So I have to leave. I mean, you guys can party on.
No, I'm gonna go. I'm done for the evening. So, any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, final thoughts, anything? Also, one last thing before we check out. Please let us know if there's something you want us to cover on an episode. Just don't kind of sit there and listen and, don't.
Yeah, we obviously shouldn't be trusted to come up with it on our own.
Yeah, we have no problem. But if there's stuff out there, send us a private email if it's something that you don't want to post in here. Or you can also post stuff in here to say, if you click on the little button, you can just post it to the panelists versus having everyone see it. So if it's a question that you're like not sure you should ask, if it's something that shouldn't be asked, and we won't, if you say please don't mention name, we won't have to mention your name. But we're here to kind of just talk about what people want to hear about. So
share our life in note investing.
So, and it's not roses, unicorns, rainbows, and everything else.
You're very tired.
But
rainbows, unicorns, and roses.
But I do got to say, this house in North Carolina, when I basically said bulldoze it, she's like, well, it's not as bad as the house she goes, I own yesterday, that my tenant who basically hasn't paid in 4 months, she sent me a picture. Next to the refrigerator, there's a wall. And I'm like, is that black mold on the wall? She goes, no, those are all roaches. I'm like, oh.
Just nuke it at that point.
Yeah, so actually, Gail, it's in your inbox right now. So.
Oh, no, I don't even want to touch the photo of it. I guess I have a house down south. I guess I better get used to the giant flying roaches that you Texans are already used to. The palmetto beetles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, the wall is kind of discolored, but then you'll see on the floor there's some friends for you. So you'll enjoy that. But okay, everyone. Well, thank you all for joining us on another episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing Podcast. And again, make sure to leave us a review on iTunes. And if you're not a member, make sure to join the Notes and Bolts Good Deeds Note Investing Facebook group, where we try and post some great content and keep it informative, which sometimes you may have already seen that information in other groups, but that's okay. And again, we just want to thank you all and go out and do some good deeds.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.